This, with no exaggeration, is the biggest bard guide I've ever made. My name is Lathyrus. I've been playing League of Legends since Season 7, I've been maining bard since Season 8, and I've been Challenger since Season 8. I've achieved Challenger on North American server, the European server, and the Korean server. So I think I have quite a lot of information and knowledge about bard. I've also managed to get to rank 1 a couple of times. And I really like pushing the limits on bard and what type of builds and what type of runes and what we can really do. I'm trying to make a very, very deep guide this time around, and I hope you guys are ready to come on a journey with me. As you saw in the intro, we are going to be covering a whole lot of topics today. This guide is incredibly dense with information and isn't intended to be completely absorbed in one viewing. Feel free to skip to certain sections that interest you, or come back to rewatch sections that you want to refresh yourself with. This guide will assume that you have basic textbook knowledge on bard's abilities. If you're not sure, there's a link in the description. Much of the concept we will discuss will be broadly covered, but we have added links to various other videos we have done if you want to learn a specific concept in more detail. There will also be a green or orange dot on the top left of corner, which will indicate if what we're talking about is evergreen or changeable. Evergreen means that the concept we have discussed is relevant forever, no matter what changes around bard. On the other hand, changeable means that the concepts can change over different patches, such as items and runes. If these change significantly, we will release another video to discuss them. Right, we are back at it again. Season 15, gotten a ton of requests about builds and runes and items and if I figured out the meta, and I'm sorry. It's taken a bit of time, but I think I'm slowly getting there. So I want to talk a lot about the runes, the items, the things I've tested, what I'm expecting will be the meta, what I like to see the most, right? There's two runes. Guardian, you know it, you love it, right? Let's go over that, the first thing. This is by far the rune page that's the most consistent, very likely for the majority of the players. It's very easy to use, it's always good, right? It's Guardian, Demolish, first tower having a lot of value. You want to see if you can in any way speed it up when you roam and stuff like that. So Demolish is really, really good. Conditioning, it's the classic, right? Tank stats, we love that. Overgrowth, tank stats, we love that. We continue with the free boots because it just makes boots so much more valuable. It allows us to get to our first item a lot faster. We go with biscuit delivery, so we don't have to buy potions. So once again, our first legendary item is accelerated as much as possible. This means we just buy the support item level 1, but I'll go over that as much as I can in the item section, right? But yeah, not really a lot to talk about this rune page. You know it, you love it. The only difference from the last time is that it's with Demolish now instead of Font of Life. Font of Life just barely heals, doesn't really do anything, it's less efficient for range users, it's just horrible, right? Demolish, I'm not sure how much you guys are gonna use it in a normal game, because bard generally don't win laning phase, meaning that he doesn't get to hit the tower very frequently, which means he will not be within range of a tower for 3 seconds within 600 range. But maybe after successful roam or a successful gank from your jungler, you can get it off. It allows you to maybe get the tower faster, which goes towards the feats of strength, right? So I think it's better than Font of Life, right? At least. Now to the spicy thing. And I want to make this very obvious first of all. I've checked the stats on u.gg, and Unsealed Spellbook went from 1% pick rate to nearly 9% pick rate now that I'm playing with it, but the win rate dropped by 5% because this rune is good, but it's very, very hard to use. So if you're not 100% accustomed to bard, you don't have to you don't have to think about how to play bard at all. You just have to think about how to play the game. Then this rune is for you. But for anyone who's still learning bard, who's still getting better at bard, who's still not entirely sure when to use his abilities in what order, and haven't perfected the Q, the E, and the R, and all these things, I urge you to just go with Guardian, right? Because this is hard. It's basically at the same skill level as learning as a new champion, so we don't want to do all of it combined, because that's when we basically waste the key slot, right? Summoner keystone slot. But what is Unsealed Spellbook? Why is it good? First of all, it allows us to get 3 rows of inspiration, which is awesome, because we don't have to have that wasted slot, which is Font of Life / Demolish, right? We instead get to get Magical Footwear, Biscuit Delivery. Down here, we can either go with Cosmic Insight, or we can go with Jack of all trades. Cosmic Insight allows us for a lot more build creativity, because we are not locked into, we have to get 10 unique stats to get the most out of this, right? We can just build whatever makes sense in that game. So this is probably the best one, but if you're very forced into, let's say, static shift build, which I'm going to talk about as well, then Jack of all trades can still be played, right? But what is Unsealed Spellbook? How do you use it? How do you play with it? First of all, it's a keystone that first unlocks 6 minutes into the game. Until then, you can't use it. 6 minutes into the game, you get the option to choose or change your summoner to a new summoner that you can then use one time, and then you get your original summoner back. So it leaves you with a lot of options. But let's say your Ignite is already on cooldown, you're looking to go for roam, or you know there's a fight about to happen, you can then choose, let's say, Exhaust, a combat ability, right? So you can lower the damage of someone. Or you see that someone is being chased, or you might think your AD carry is about to get dove, you can quickly change to heal. Just know that you cannot change if you're in combat, so you have to change before you go into combat, else you're locked out until you're out of combat. When you've used the summoner, you can then first, like if you change the Ignite to Exhaust, right? Then Exhaust will be on cooldown until you have swapped, I believe it's 3 times, right? Meaning that first time you pick to Exhaust, then let's say you go Heal, then you go Ghost, then you go Smite because you wanted to steal a Void Grub, a Herald, a Dragon, whatever. You wanted to steal an objective. Then Exhaust is available again, right? So you have to be very careful about how you use them, because it's not like you can just spam the same thing over and over. Besides that, Summoner Spellbook starts off with a 300-second cooldown, aka 5 minutes, and every time you swap, that cooldown is reduced by 25 seconds, up to 6 times, meaning it gets reduced by a total of 150 seconds. Meaning that its total cooldown at that point will only be 150 seconds, aka 2.5 minutes. So you want to not just swap to swap, but you also want to swap as fast as you can, because it makes the next swap faster and next swap faster, right? So you have to walk that perfect balance, which is kind of interesting, right? But again, it's hard to use, but you can get some very good moments out where you get a perfect Exhaust, a perfect heal. You manage to smite one of the Void Grubs, so you deny the feats of strength, because they have to kill all 3 Void Grubs for it to count towards the feats of strength. So if you just heal one of them, you deny that, and you might be able to help your team get feats of strength faster. You steal a dragon, which is a feat of strength, and yada yada yada, right? You get what I mean. If you have questions about this, just ask in the comment field. I'll try to explain if you have questions about it and how it is used, but do know I urge the majority of the player base to use Guardian. It's easier. Even I'm still struggling with Unsealed Spellbook. I'm still learning the right timings, and I still oftentimes swap, and then I'm like, oh, that was a bad timing to swap, and then I sit on that swap summoner for so long because I can't use it, and my original summoner, like the Igniter, the Flash that's under it, is now back on and ready, but I can't use it because I swapped incorrectly, let's say I took Smite or something, and then I don't want to waste this Smite, and it can feel bad very fast. So practice it at least in normal games or Swift play or whatever it's called now before we jump into ranked, okay? And then the secondary page here is, as always, conditioning, overgrowth, attack speed, scaling health. Classic, right? We know the rune page, we love it. So super fun. Now, the items have been a bit interesting, right? Because feats of strength kind of changes up a lot of things, because these tier 3 boots are kind of interesting and spicy. But if we just start from the start, right? We spawn into the game with level 1, we just buy the support item, no potions, no anything. This is what we start with, right? Then on first reset, realistically we either want to reset at 700, 800 or 1100. If it's 700, we go Ruby Crystal Cloth Armor. If it's 800, we go double Ruby Crystal, and if it's 1100, it's Ruby Crystal Cloth Armor. This is super awesome. If this is the reset we get, then the next reset should be when we have 900 gold, where we can then upgrade this into this, and this into this, right? This is 900 gold. And then the next reset again should be at 900, while we can then reset into this. When we now have Dead Man's Blade, there's a lot of different options, right? We will have gotten the free boots now. We're just going to place these in, but these are the free boots. We will have gotten Blood Song as well. So we have 2 legendary items. Have you gotten the Feats of Strength, which requires you to be able to buy your tier 3 boots? You need to have 2 legendary items. Your support item when finished counts as a legendary item, so you now have 2. The boots that seems to be the most efficient ones are either gonna be the cooldown boots or the swiftness boots. The armor and magic resist boots are decent, but they have been nerfed. They're on longer cooldown. They don't give nearly as much of a shield. Movement speed is just key. The swiftness boost gives total movement speed, like 4% extra total movement speed, which is absolutely insane, but it's only movement speed it gives, right? There's nothing else. And you already have like reduced effectiveness of slow on Dead Man's Blade. I do believe they will probably stack since they're 2 different names, but I'm not entirely sure if they stack or not, or if they'd like 25% increase of 25%. Maybe someone smarter than me can completely say that. Where the upgraded tier 3 lucidity boots are special in the sense that there will be 25 ability haste, 50 movement speed, still 10 summoner spell haste, right? And then they give you 8% increased movement speed for 4 seconds every time you either hit an ability or you heal or shield someone, right? And since Bard's Meeps are counted as an ability, your auto attack with the Meep will give you that 8% movement speed for the entirety of 4 seconds. So it's very easy to use this. So I think I lean more into the empowered lucidity boots, but I also don't think I've tested the swiftness nearly as much as I probably should have. So I think they are very good as well. But if you look at the OPG as this release, I probably haven't used them that much. Maybe I have, because maybe this guide first releases a few days after I've recorded this. Who knows? But yeah, this is basically how, right? Do know though that you don't have to instantly buy the tier 3 boots if you don't feel like you need that movement speed. Because if you're at this point, right here, before you even upgrade to boots, and you're like, cool, we got feats of strength, but I actually don't need more movement speed, I actually need magic resist first. What we do instead is that, no matter whether we got the tier 2 boots, tier 3 boots first or not, when we need a magic resist item, which we basically always need, the item we're gonna go is Abyssal Mask now. The reason for Abyssal Mask is that they changed it. So it used to shred 30% magic resist for anyone that was within range, right? Which was not that great. And then I believe they've also given us a bit more ability haste on it than it used to have. I don't think it had 15, I think it had 10. Correct me if I'm wrong here. It's not really that important though. But the great thing about it now is that it increases... the enemy champions take 12% more magic damage now. Which means it has nothing to do with magic pen or magic shred or anything. You just make people take more damage besides how much magic resist they have. They just take 12% increased damage, which is absolutely nuts when you consider that. Because let's say someone wanted to do 500 damage, then they do 550 and something, right? Instead, 560 damage, I think the math is, which is quite crazy, right? And then you also get magic shred and stuff like after that, because after that you can then go something like Blood Letters as well, which works off of whenever you do magic damage, it shreds 5% per stack, up to 30%, right? Your Meeps will proc this, your Q will proc this, so very easy to proc it, right? So if you have a very magic damage heavy team, like an AP mid, AP jungle, AP mid, AP top, where you're more than just you and one other AP user, so you're 3 AP users in total, this would be a really good build. If you don't have that, and you don't need magic resist instantly, that's when you can then instead go Static Shiv. A lot of you guys have started loving Static Shiv. It still has great stats as well, good win rate, it still works a lot. And then you can, after Static Shiv, then go into Abyssal. Cool thing about Abyssal is it will increase Static Shiv's damage, since Static Shiv is magic damage, right? Like the proc, the lightning. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then we have one last item. If we need more magic resist, we can go Koenig. If we need just a cheap, fast power item, because it's item 6 and it's rare, we get to that, we can go something like Locket. If we need more armor item and they have crit, we can obviously go Randuins. If they are auto attack heavy because they have Ginsu so they don't crit, then we can go Frozen Heart. We can also go Liandry's, and we can go Bloodletter. So we have a lot of different opportunities and options depending on basically what situation we are in at the given point, right? Just know that Abyssal Mask has a higher priority for me than Koenig Rukan has now, even though it will not make you as tanky. It's very cheap, like it's 2600 compared to Koenig's 2900, but it basically gives like, that's 50 HP in difference, 30 magic resist, you lose the magic shield, but you do more damage and you have ability haste as well. And you make your team do more damage as well. And 250 gold cheaper. So I really like this. I really like this. I think it's super cool, super good. Don't sleep on that, right? But that's pretty much how, like if we look at a full build, it would be, just to put it all in, right? We have Deadmans, we have the empowered Ionians, if you have these, right? We have Bloodsong, and then we have Abyssal, Static would probably go in like around here, right? And then we can go Bloodsong or something like that. Let's say like this could realistically be a full build. Then the static shift here is quite flexible. If it could be a tank item, cannot be a tank item, the same thing here. It could be a different AP item where we go Leandries instead. So many different options, right? But we do end up with above 3k HP, close to 4000 HP with this. Close to, I think it's 180 or 90 armor and 120 or 130 magic resist. Depending if there's any mountain dragons or anything taken in the game, right? But yeah, this is probably the build. It's what I've been playing with a lot. It feels strong. You can slot Swifties in here instead if you don't feel like if you feel like you need more movement speed reduction thingy efficiency and more normal movement speed besides when you get to use your spell auto attacks and stuff like that, right? But yeah, that's all I've been experimenting with, all the changes I've been going through. If you have questions, if you want to hear more, or there's something I skipped or didn't explain well enough, please just let me know in the comment field and I'll try to get back to you as fast as I can, okay? Yeah, thank you so much for listening to me rambling, and thank you so much for watching the guide. I really appreciate it. Have a wonderful 2025. So what makes Bard so fun? When you look at everything this champion does, one word comes to mind, and that is agency. Bard has so many ways of getting around the map to dictate the game as he please. In a categorical sense, he is known as a catcher, which is a class of a champion alongside Pike, Thresh and Blitzcrank that specializes in punishing enemies that overstep while taking control of an area. Bard is a blindable champion that can play with and against any team composition. He is one of the weakest at level 2 to 5, but has one of the strongest mid and late games compared to every other support in the game. As with all other catchers, he is also an incredibly good champion to roam with. Bard can adapt to any AD carry, but the best ones are typically champions who can survive on their own in the early game, while scaling well into the mid to late game, such as Jhin, Ezreal and Ciri. Mages also synergizes very well with Bard, as their wave clear makes it very hard for enemies to dive them while you're roaming. While it's not impossible, it's harder for him to play with early game champions that want to be aggressive early like Caitlyn, Draven and Kalista. This is because they want to be aggressive early, while you, being a weaker support, want to play passive early. The mentality you should approach the early game is this: if you come out equal in laning phase, you have one laning phase. Bard is weaker than most supports at level 2 to 5, but you outscale most of them after level 6. As long as you don't fall behind, you will find yourself ahead in the mid and late game. As you load into the game, the first thing you want to do is of course buy your support item. I don't buy potions since I have the cookies. Then I'll move into get into a position where I can manipulate where the chants will spawn. 2 chants will spawn at 25 seconds. They will spawn in a circle around you, so if you stay close to the wall like this, they can only spawn a bit above you. They cannot spawn in your base as well, so you can always manipulate them to spawn quite close to you. This makes it so it's a lot safer and easier to collect them. Do, however, remember, if you're playing into a champion like Blitzcrank or something else that you might consider will be able to invade, do consider skipping the chimes to instantly go to a spot where you will scout out if they're invading. Your next chime spawn would be at 115. With the same concept, you can once again go just back if you have nothing else to do and just wait for it to spawn. While we wait for that, it's important to inform that junglers no longer need leashes because their jungle pets have been added, so they are very sustainable. However, as a support, it's easier to apply their playstyle to yours than it is the other way around. Meaning that if your AD carry goes up to leash, you might as well leash with them because it's safer that way. When you're now done and you're running into lane, you have now collected your chimes. When you connect into the lane, it's very important that you run into lane with your minions like this in case someone is cheesing in here. This means if they now run out, you at least have your minion wave to defend you and protect you. The mindset you want to take from here should not be to trade with your opponent, but to make it easy for your AD carry to farm. As a general rule, it is okay to let the enemy push you into tower, even if they take a few plates. You will stay alive on the tower, so you can continue to collect the same amount of experience as the opponent. As the wave continues to crashes under your tower, use your support stacks under your tower to help execute minions that your AD carry cannot collect. Against melee supports, you want to save your Q as a reactionary spell when they engage. Against range supports, you can use your Q more proactively to harass when they are in range. But you still want to prioritize saving mana for your W to keep yourself healthy, especially since you didn't buy health pots. From level 2 to 5, you're still looking to come out of this lane equal, and you don't have to take risk in an attempt to get ahead. As usual, you can continue to allow the enemy to push into you while you help your AD carry farm with your support item. When you are on the tower, you can look to see if the either opponents walk behind a minion. If they do, you could potentially cast a Q to stun them under your tower for some free harass. The best time to recall is when you have enough gold to buy an item, and when you can recall without your AD carry dying. The easiest way to do that is to recall when your AD carry recalls. Alternatively, you can also recall when the wave has crashed into their tower, since the wave will start pushing towards you, allowing your AD carry to catch the wave once it gets closer to our side. As you're walking out of base, check for two things. Is the wave pushing towards you or crashed into their tower? Are mid and top lane gangable? If the answer is yes to both, then you may start pathing to those places. If the answer to one or both of these questions is no, then you should path bot. You are now level 4 or 5 or 6 and you have just gotten your first reset off. You had 1100 gold and you want to buy double ruby crystal and a cloth armor when you reset. When you then run into the fountain and want to portal away, you stand where I'm standing here and you aim it down until right here, basically in the middle of the rock, and then you can take the portal and it will always leave you at the inhibitor. If your portal for whatever reason will be on cooldown and you cannot portal out of the fountain, remember that you can portal from this place all the way to down here, so you can still get back to lane very fast. Whenever you leave from base towards wherever you want to go, it's important that you try to make a path from A to B through as many times as you can get. Even if the chime takes you a bit off the path, remember it gives you so much movement speed, it kind of weighs up for it, right? We want to always aim to get 2 chimes a minute. So if we are ever behind that, we are too focused on other things and we're not optimizing our path. And you can be ahead of it as well, which can be either a very good thing or it can mean that you're over prioritizing the chimes and it actually ends up hurting you a bit as well. During early laning phase, there are 2 very good wards you can place whenever you want to defend yourself. If you're on red side and you spawn up here, you want to try to place an early ward around the raptor camp before it even spawns, as it gives you a proper information of where the jungler will be pathing. Did he start bot side and is pathing from bot to top? Then you're quite safe bot lane, right? Or did he actually start top side and he's pathing from top to bot? Then you should assume him around between 3 minutes and 3:45, right? Depending if he wants to gank before the skull crab or he wants to gank after the skull crab. If you're blue side, however, if you push up and you manage to crash on the 3rd wave, then you have plenty of time where you can just go up like this right after it crashes because they have to farm on the turret, and you can just ward here, which will then see both the blue buff and the grump. This is assuming they have started, he started top side to bot side. But if this has already been cleared and you now place this around 230, right, then you know that he has to be top side, right, because they already cleared all of this. So that gives you a lot of information, and it gives your teammates a lot of information. However, if you're not able to crash in third wave, which you realistically, when you're playing Bard, won't be doing, because they will have all the control of the lane, right? Meaning that you're likely gonna continuously be pushed in. So you just want to have this brush continuously warded, or if it's even worse than that and they're continuously pushing in, but they're building up a wave that you cannot get close to, and you're afraid that they want to perhaps dive you, then consider either placing a ward here or placing a ward here behind you. So you have some type of information so you can react just a few seconds before the dive happens. Whenever you want to reset, let's assume you just crashed and pushed out the wave, right? And you're now looking to reset. We are playing on blue side. One of the best wards to place always before we reset is right here. And this ward will allow us, when we recall, to see if either the enemy support or someone sneaks into the lane, into a brush while we are resetting, to set up as a surprise gank as we come back into the lane. Once you're level 6 with your ult, you are now much stronger and can play more proactively. At this point, you truly want to embody a catcher. You want to find someone who is out of position and use your ult to lock them in place for a kill or to force a summoner. If you're fighting in bot lane, you want to wait until an opponent is close to a wall, a minion, or their lane partner. Once they're in position, you can cast your ult and cast your Q right as they come out of stasis to stun them. Do remember to keep an eye on your AD carry, because he also needs to be in range to actually follow up on this. Bard has an easier time to tower diving than you think. First of all, before you dive, you need to make sure the opponent doesn't have some way to survive. This could be some ability the opponent has to stay alive, think Ezreal with his E ability, Caitlyn with the net ability, and so on and so on. Having a defensive summoner spell or having backup from the allies, you should only dive after you have made sure you won't get punished. Here's a step-by-step process of diving. Firstly, get your wave to crash into the enemy tower so they can take aggro. Next, block their exit by walking or portaling behind that tower while another ally blocks them from the front. Now, the key is to be patient. You can slowly walk up to them, then auto-attack them on the turret. Once you have taken 1-2 tower shots from the tower, you can ult just the tower to reset aggro and the damage ramp from the tower as well. Make sure you're keeping to watch of your own health and prepare to walk, flash or portal away when you're about to die. Hopefully your lane partner will deal enough damage to do the rest. After the first tower goes down, you're no longer confined to a lane. With that, the mentality you want to embody is like a conductor. You direct your team to establish prior to pushing certain lanes, catching certain overextended enemies, and taking control of various objectives. To figure out what you should do, ask yourself right now, what is the one thing I need to play around? It can be an objective like Dragon or Baron, or it could be a player like a Fed carry. Whatever it is, don't hesitate and commit to the play. Hesitance is the enemy of improvement. And even if you make the wrong play, you can easily identify it in the VOD review and adjust your method of evaluating your win condition. If you hesitate, then your issue becomes inaction, and there's nothing to learn here besides taking action more quickly. So make a choice, any choice. Anyhow, here's a bit of a simplified blueprint so you have an idea what to do at any point. Your overall goal is to establish prior to take an objective, which could be a tower, a dragon, a baron, or an opponent. Firstly, you want to ping your intent to your teammates so they know what you want to do and to conduct them to assist you. Next, you want to place vision to cover the area around your next play. You will want to catch out any unsuspicious victims, position yourself between you and your carries, take the objective, then reset, rinse and repeat. Now that we have talked about the macro, let's talk about how you can use your abilities to help you get those objectives. Let's first talk about your ult. Since the entire map is now fully open to you, you will have more options. The two main ways of using your ult is to use it for engage and ulting the backline. Let's talk about both. Ulting to engage means you're ulting an overextended enemy to start the fight. It's the most commonly used way to ult. This is really good against the mobile carriers when your own team lacks engage. Next, there's ulting the backline after a fight starts. This is really good when your team is already on top of the enemy, or when your opponent is late to the fight and catching up from farther away. Besides these two uses, there's a lot of other interesting ways you can use your ult as well. Here's a list of a few. Ulting the tower when the enemy herald is charging in. Ulting the enemy jungler while they're taking Baron so they can't smite it. Ulting the blast cone while you're chasing an enemy so they can't jump away. Ulting your own champions when they're about to get hit by a big ability like Karthus, Yasuo or Diana, and lots more individual champions interactions, all of which you can try by experience. Because of how precise you have to be with your ult, I highly recommend that you set your ult on normal cast so you have an extra second to aim. Although your ult is the ability that has the highest skill ceiling, your Q is one of the most important abilities to use correctly. At this point, your Q is no longer a harassment ability but a stun ability, so you should use it as such. First of all, you almost always want to auto attack before casting Q, as the slow from the meeps will make it much easier to land your Q. The easiest way to guarantee a stun is to ult a target when they are bunched up with another unit or when they're close to a wall, so you can time your Q for an immediate stun once they come out of stasis. You can also use your Q right as the opponent comes out of your tunnel to guarantee a stun there as well. One thing that's kinda cool with Bard is his Q ability, right? It's by far the ability with the most skill reflection, right? Because it can be used in so many different ways. It's quite known that Bard Q has a fixed Q spawn rate, right? So if you Q here, it will always be same like range from when it goes into compared to when it goes out to. If we spawn something like here, right? If we Q upwards, it will not be stunning, right? No matter what direction we're going, it will not be stunning. It's too far away from the wall. And that's because the Q range will always start from the start of the hitbox. So the hitbox is right in front of here. But what happens then if we actually go into the target dummy and then Q this way? Now it's suddenly stunning. And that's something that you can abuse quite a lot when you have ulted a target. That you're like, oh, this target is a bit too far away from the wall and normal Q won't hit. But I have time to run over to the target, so now I can just stun it. Because the Q range is fixed from the point of entrance of the body. So if you are starting the Q from the backside, which is closer to the wall, then it will still go the same direction compared to if it starts from the front side of the body. Which means that you can manipulate a longer stun. Which is super cool, right? Then, besides that, there's the good old Q flash. We are in this position. We have already gathered that this person is too far away from the wall. We cannot stun him. What we can do is we can Q like that into giving you the right angle. But I will be very honest with you. It's a very cool thing to do. The only thing I really do, though, because it's way more consistent, is that you can Q flash to just increase the range, right? And make it harder for them to react to it. So if you're too far away from something, then you Q flash like that. I rarely ever use the Q flash to change the direction of the Q to catch them off guard, because most of the time there will be so many other options that are just way more realistic and with a way higher chance of success. Because the other thing is quite hard to do, especially in a game where everyone is moving around as well. Speaking of abilities that change their function once out of lane, your W is also one of them. In lane, your W is used to restore health, but once you're out of lane, it has now been demoted to Bard's weakest ability. We don't really use the fully charged W for the heal anymore, since the amount isn't a lot and it doesn't have good AP skinning. Instead, your W will be used in a few ways. The most common method is to give yourself or your allies an extra boost of movement speed during a skirmish. The protection will be even better if you're taking Guardian as well. Your W also gives vision of a small area for a second, so you can cast it in a brush or over Baron or Dragon Pit to reveal the area without having to face check it and risk getting caught. The least common usage of it is to proc a Blood Song. Since Blood Song has a shield proc that activates when you use an ability, you can cast 2 charges of Blood Song since W has 2 charges. Your portal is pretty much the only ability that you use for the same purpose from minute 1 to minute 40. Many people use E as an in and out tool, however that isn't always correct. Instead of seeing it as an in and out tool, you should treat it as a dash instead. What this means is that you can use it to reposition yourself and your allies during a fight while still being in range to deal damage. Because your E has a very long cooldown, you do want to make sure that you are casting it only when it's necessary. If you use your E as a flanking tool and engage tool, you have to be sure that either you come out alive or you die for a good trade. Your E has a deceptively high range as well, so you can cast it in the path of your allies' escape route when they're being chased, so they can see it early enough to pass towards the portal. Just like your ult, Bard's E can also be quite tricky, so I also recommend keeping this one on normal cast as well. One thing I've noticed a lot of people seems very kind of surprised about is if you can take a portal one way, you can take the portal the other way as well. Meaning, you can actually start a portal the other way as well. This same thing goes for something like the alcove portal. When you want to portal from alcove, the quickest way to do it is by standing behind the fire thingy in the thing, and then you can always just portal. If you're very precise, you can actually get the portal all the way to your tier 1 turret. Same thing goes for up here, right? You stand behind it and then you just aim upwards. Oh, and then we'll remember to click. And then you can get all the way up to the tier 1 turret. Just to showcase here, something that might catch out a lot of people. Let's assume you're actually seating this tower, right? Then you can always just set up an escape path as well towards the alcove. So you stand and hit, and then someone appears and you just instantly run away. So remember, if you can take the portal one way, you can take the portal the other way as well. Just have to get practiced on it, right? In terms of warding, in the mid to late game, we have made a lot more extensive warding video, but here's some general tips. First of all, think about who or what you're warding for. You want to ask yourself, is my role right now to protect a carry or to prepare for an objective? Next, look at where your minions are. Then draw a line between each lane. That is the line of ward you may place. If you place it further towards the enemy, you risk getting caught out. If you place it behind your wave, then it won't be useful because your enemies are almost never going to be behind your wave. With that line, identify the 3 main choke points where the opponent may enter to intercept you. You want to place 2 wards at the choke points of the jungle and 1 extra ward at the lane, so you know which way your opponent is pathing after pushing a wave. In terms of your sweeper, the way you can use it is to imagine what the enemy thinks their win con is. Once you know their win con, you will know where they want to ward. If their win con is to steal the dragon away from you, then you would want to sweep areas where they need to walk through to get the drake. Once you sweep those areas, they are choked out of information and will either back off or risk face taking. As a mid-game champion, you can get behind quite often as most champions are stronger than you in the early game, so mistakes can happen. When you're ahead, you want structure, you want to choke your enemies out of gold and zone them out of key areas. You don't have to take risk and you can slowly inch your way to victory. When you're behind, playing with structure won't work. Instead, you have to take risks. You need to get scrappy. You need to go for 1-for-1 trades. And you need to inject volatility into the game to corner your opponents into hesitating and forcing them to make bad decisions. Now, realistically, how do you practically do this in game? To make a comeback, your ult is your best friend. So you need to use it often and use it well. When an enemy is pushed up and your allies are close, do not hesitate to ult and catch them. Even if you die for the kill, it's generally worth it because you don't need gold or experience to be useful, and whoever died doesn't get to participate. In this section, we will list the most common mistakes Bard beginners typically take, so you can stop yourself from collecting bad habits. Mistake 1 is leaving lane just to pick up chimes. Your chimes should be seen as a secondary objective to pick up on the way towards a primary objective, like roaming mid or placing wards. If you randomly choose to leave just because there's chimes nearby, you risk leaving your AD carry getting caught by the opponent. Mistake 2 is buying control wards. Control wards aren't helpful because they don't do anything that you yourself can't do without spending 75 gold. If you're winning, then the enemy can't walk into key areas without getting caught, so a control ward is unnecessary. If you're behind, then you won't be able to place a control ward in a key area without the enemy pushing you out and removing it. If you want to remove wards, then the sweeper can do it, and it's free. The only time where you can buy a control ward is against permastealth champions like Evelyn and Twitch, where you will place a control ward behind you to ensure you can't be flanked. Mistake 3 is using Q before autos. People often cast Q out before their auto attack because Q has a slightly longer range than your auto attacks. The issue is that your Q is quite a slow skill shot, so if you're not in a range to auto attack, it will be very hard to hit your Q, let alone stun with it. This is why you always auto attack first to slow the enemy and get close, then use your Q. Mistake 4 is spamming Q off cooldown. In a chaotic team fight, it can be easy to be trigger happy and spam your Q whenever it's off cooldown. However, if you're not stunning someone with the Q, you're losing a lot of potential disruption. Instead, don't be afraid to be patient with your Q and wait until the enemy gets closer to a wall or another unit before casting it. Mistake 5 are lazy man portals. This is a portal you use when you're on the map to get from point A to point B faster. The issue with this is that your E has a very long cooldown, so using it to get to a destination faster means you won't be able to escape if you get caught. Mistake number 6 is using portal to escape too early. There are a lot of teamfights where I've seen a bard casting portal too early and escaping through it with plenty of health to spare. Because you're buying tank items, you're also playing to soak up aggro and damage for your allies. This is why you don't want to cast portal until the very last second. It will take time to know where your limits are, but experimentation, limit testing and VOD reviews will help you get there. Mistake 7 are buying potions or refillable potions. Potions are bought when you assume you'll be trading with your opponent in lane. However, because we're opting for a passive playstyle while saving money to get our first item faster, spending gold on potions don't make sense. And the same goes for refillable potions, as they cost even more and heal even less. Mistake 8 is using flash Q instead of Q flash. As we have talked about before, you can Q flash to cancel the Q animation, making it much smoother and hard to react to. Mistake 9 is using max range ults. While it does have a very long range, actually using it from max range is very unreliable. The longer the range, the longer the cast time. Since enemies can see where your ult is going to land, they can very easily walk away. As a general rule, you should only cast your ult when you're on the same screen as your target. Finally, mistake 10 is ulting an enemy that's already been targeted. This is one of the most common reasons why you get flamed when playing bard. If your ally is targeting an enemy, ulting them essentially gives them a free Synergies, give them the chance to replenish their cooldowns to fight back, and gives their allies a few seconds to come re-engage. Instead, if your ally is already fighting the enemy, loop to ult in the back line. With all the common mistakes covered, here are a few frequently asked questions about bard. Question 1. Is Unsealed Spellbook good? So Unsealed Spellbook is invented by Polypuff. The rune can be good since changing summons can give you a lot of utility. However, the learning curve on the rune itself is as difficult as learning a completely new champion. So if you want to try out the rune, make sure you're very familiar with bard first. Question 2. Why don't you go Domination? The new ward runes don't increase your stats, and the added utility doesn't benefit you more than the extra gold you get from free boots and cookies. Relentless Hunter isn't very good either, because you don't need more out of combat movement speed when you already have chimes. Question 3. Who should I ban? This is up to your preference. If you're looking for supports that outscale you, two come to mind: Cillian and Sona. You can also ban stuff like Draven. Draven tends to be a champion low elo players have a harder time to play into, especially AD carries. Question 4. Should I start with W? No. Even though you're playing passive from level 1, your Q still makes you a very strong champion at level 1. Because of that, you typically want to start with Q in case the enemy engages, since it gives you the resources to retaliate. Question 5. Should I put point and W in heavy poke lanes? No. Your Q, stun duration, cooldown and damage all improve with levels, so by leveling W you're delaying that power spike. If you find yourself low on health, it's more likely because you're not dodging abilities enough or you're playing too aggressive. Question 6. Why don't you build full damage? Ironically, going full damage will make you deal less damage. Bard is a short range champion, so you'll easily get bursted by other champions before you can get in range to deal any amount of damage. Going tank will allow you to stay in fights longer, it lets you use all your meeps, and lets you use multiple rotations of your abilities for maximum damage. Question 7. Why don't you go Symbiotic Souls? Bard does not need more out of combat movement speed, Chimes will give him more than enough, and choosing to buy these boots forces you to get them early instead of Deadman's Blade, which is a much bigger power spike for yourself. You also don't need a faster recall because you don't recall that often anyways. Question 8. Is Rapid Fire Cannon any good? No. It's not good, for the same reason going full offensive items aren't good. It makes you too squishy and you don't need extra range on your auto attacks since your movement speed, portal and ult are more than enough to catch out your opponents. Question 9. Is Vigilant Wardstone good on bard? No, it's not good. The stats aren't very gold efficient because the power budget of the item goes towards allowing you to buy and place 2 control wards at once. We already explained why control wards aren't good, so if you're not buying them, Vigilant Wardstone just becomes a gold inefficient item. So this guide has been extremely long and dense, and it's very understandable if you don't pick up every single thing we have talked about. To make things easier, I've attached a table so you have an idea of how to progress. You can take a screenshot of this table or download the image in the description, but feel free to leave any questions in the comments. If you have any questions about anything else in the video, feel free to leave a comment below, ask me on stream, or join our Discord. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you enjoy Bard even more.